Hello guys, welcome to my SMALAND review. SMALAND is the Tier 8 Pan-European destroyer. The SMALAND is basically an improved Östergötland, but obviously it plays against legendary tiers and it has some drawbacks. Despite having some very good aspects, it definitely has some drawbacks, and I will talk you through in this video what you have to watch out for and what are the strengths and what are the weaknesses. I will start to show you my at the moment final configuration I'm running. So I have decided to run it in a full stealth torpedo build. So that means you have only 16k HP. You have quite okay artillery. You have very fast reloading torpedoes with 56 seconds. You have a very good anti-air, even with anti-air booster. You have a good maneuverability, and you have a very good concealment with 5.1, outspotting a lot of destroyers in that tier. And on top, I put the radar with 7.5 kilometer. And I will explain you soon why I'm running this configuration. But to kick off, I give you some footage of some other configurations I tried. So here I was trying the gunboat configuration or the generic captain configuration. So I tried all the different variations, and here I also used the heel in this game, so you can see how it works with the heel. So I said before I used the torpedo configuration with 16.5 thousand HP, and here you can see I have 21,700 plus the heels. So this is a little bit different game style. My concealment is 5.5 here instead of 5.1 in a torpedo build. So in this configuration you have slower reloading torpedoes, so they are reloading around 80 seconds, 90 seconds, something like that. The thing with this ship is the torpedoes don't hit very hard, but I find it very useful if they hit very often, because it's similar to the German mosquito perk from Blue, if you know that, Captain. If you spam every 56 seconds a couple of torpedoes, you trigger some floodings and so on and so forth. In this configuration here, it's more, let's say, open to engage other destroyers in a gunfight. Despite having quite fast reload guns, similar to, not exactly, but similar to a Friesland or Östergötland, I find them not very accurate. So you have to be very close, I would say within 5 kilometer, really to hit something. If you want to hit something on 8 or 10 kilometer, I would say 70–80% of your shells miss the target, especially if the destroyer is running away. So these guns are everything else but precise. And this is the first big drawback for this destroyer. And this is why I have decided this is not the gunboat I wanted it to be. This is the torpedo boat. So we have inaccurate guns on long distance, but fast reloading. And we have low damage torpedoes, so the amount of floods being triggered is reduced, because with 10k base damage you don't trigger too many floods. And so the torpedoes, they are quite convenient to spam some areas, but you don't do too much damage. And even if you wanted to rush somebody, the maximum raw damage is 80,000, and you have to deduct the torpedo protection of battleships. So given you have a 35% protection, then you can barely hit 60,000 damage. So not enough on tier 8 or legendary ship. So you cannot suicide rush a full HP Yamato. You won't be able to sink it. So be aware that neither the guns nor the torpedoes do have the very good death strike capabilities. This ship is more about controlling the map, getting the caps. This is where the ship excels at. And while you watch the footage in the background, after these games, I have a couple of more games. And you will see in these games that in every game I was able to contest caps and get the caps. And to be better at contesting caps, I switched the heel against the 7.5 kilometer radar, and the duration is 20 seconds, and that is quite nice. What you want to do, and this is the tactic I'm using in this ship here, I used my super concealment of 5.1 kilometer and the 7.5 kilometer radar to outspot other destroyers when I approach the cap. Approaching the cap brings me to the next advantage and the next drawback. The ship does have an engine boost, but the engine boost barely lasts 60 seconds. So you might be used to 2 minutes, but this is just about 60 seconds. And it boosts, I think, 25%, but even with speed boosts and everything on speed, you barely hit 50 knots. And the thing with this ship is, if you use the propulsion mod, it still takes ages for this ship to speed up. And I think 30 seconds of the booster are already gone before you reach the maximum speed of around 50 knots. It does help that the reload booster reloads after, I think, 2 minutes or so, so much faster than the traditional speed boost. Not reload booster, the speed reload. But the problem is it lasts only 60 seconds, and it is good in the beginning of a game to speed you into a cap, so you can contest it, and usually the other destroyers, they are a little bit slower than 50 knots, so you usually will be first in the cap. And my strategy, what I developed in these couple of games I played here, is I rush the cap, and as soon as I cover most of the cap with my concealment range, I trigger the radar to see where the enemy destroyer is. And what happens is, you usually unconceal them between 6 and 7 kilometers. But you don't want to open fire in that moment, you want your team to open the fire. And that usually scares the enemy off. He takes the first damage. He's not being killed, but he takes the first damage. You take the cap and you move on to the next cap. And the first destroyer is busy and he's scared because he probably lost already 50% of his HP. And you have an easy going to the next cap. And even if you run into him again, with 5.1 kilometer concealment these days, this is a very good concealment because most of the destroyers, they have 5.5, 5.8 these days. So you outspot a lot of destroyers in tier 8 and legendary. And that helps you, again, to trigger the team fire. So you're just running around and go spot whatever you can. So having said that, the SMALAND is not so much about damage records, even though this game triggered some or pulled some good damage around 140k. But this was more on the rarer side. My average game was like 30 to 60k damage, but I usually got 2 to in the last game I almost got 5 caps in a game. So 3, 4 was very common in the games I played, because you scare off enemy DDs. And you have total cap and map control. With the speed boost, you speed from one cap to another, you cool down while you're capping, you speed to the next. But again, the speed of the ship is not the best. The turning of the ship is very sluggish, it's very slow turning, and the propulsion is very, very slow. So the movement of the ship is a big drawback, a big minus. So you have the fast reload guns, you have the radar, but you have a sluggish movement, slow propulsion. But you can do cap control, and the torpedoes hit from time to time. If you time them good, you can do some decent damage, but don't be focused on going into gunfights with enemy destroyers, and don't be focused and think you are a torpedo boat. Yes, you are. You can spam torpedoes, but not like, let's say, the IGN or like a Clip Air or whatever. So the SMALAND doesn't excel in anything, but it's pretty good at most of the things, except maneuverability. So in SMALAND, you have to pick your fights, you have to pick your positions, you carry your team, you spot for your team, but you're not the big damage maker. You're more the eyes of your team, and you depend on the team. So if your team goes down quickly, chances are you're going to lose the game. But if you manage to, let's say, spot for the team and they somewhat know their business, you're going to spot them to victory. Let's get back to the guns. People are quite excited about the guns, but I told you the precision is not the best, and you can see that now here in this game already. Firing at the Shimakaze, uh, you see where the shells land and how difficult it is uh, to hit a destroyer who moves out. And you see left, right. So they go everywhere, but they don't go. So this was a more precise salvo, but most of the salvos, they go one, let's say, one diameter of a destroyer left or right. Um, it's very difficult on at the distance to shoot at enemy destroyers. It's very good at 3-4 kilometers, but 7-8 kilometers, I wouldn't even bother to open the fire because barely you hit anything. So you should be sure to be able to kill somebody because you don't have any smoke. So if you open fire, you need to bring down the destroyer. And if you have to shoot at an enemy at 8 kilometers for like 2 minutes just to decrease his HP because your bullets hit everything but not the ship, then is not worse. So you better use the concealment, approach it, and reopen the fire. So this one is not a long-range fighter. It's a close-range fighter if you have to fight, but I would be reluctant to fight at all. I would spam the torpedoes, and that again is why I switched to radar, super concealment, 5.1 kilometer, and fast reloading loading torpedoes. I don't say the ship cannot perform in the other configurations. Here you can see close range. It's much better used. Um, when you shoot at the destroyer because you hit every bullet. Also, the AP is quite okay, so you can use it broadside enemy destroyers. It's not the super German AP, but it's working. It's okay. And so pick your fights. Don't go long range. Spot everything and use the radar. The radar is really useful to scare enemy destroyers off. And yeah, I show you in the next games how I did it. Before we get to the next game, I want you to talk you through my stats. In the games I've played, you see this one was a 3K game, pretty decent. So if you can get 3K in a destroyer, it's quite okay. So you can see I played 14 games up to now. I won 9 of them. I lost 5. My average EP is 1950. And I think it's pretty decent given I tried all the different configurations. I got smacked in a couple of games instantly. My worst, I think, was 200 XP when they instantly spotted and nailed me. So I think if you consider that over the coming games I get more experienced, I think the SMALAND is a pretty decent ship which can carry the team, which can carry the games. You see, I've been spamming a lot of torpedoes with 16%. This is quite okay, but not the very best percentage. And the gun precision with 38% is a disaster. My average precision over all destroyers is, I think, 46 or 47%. And in my top destroyers, it's between 50 and 60%. So this underlines what I said about the gun precision. The guns are, the precision is best case mediocre. So this is a little clip where I run the radar configuration and the super concealment, and it exactly shows what I meant. I will outspot the enemy destroyers, exactly two of them, and unfortunately I run into five of the enemy ships, so there's no chance, and this team really potatoed hard. So the other flank, you see that 5 versus 3, and they got wiped, 2 divisions in my team, so that was a disaster. But for me, this was okay. I spotted the Udaloy. It kept going. I tried to keep it into spotting distance so my team can make use of it and open fire. And at the same time, I was hoping for the torpedoes to hit. So I was maneuvering around, and then the radar popped up of the cruiser. So I needed to get away from the radar. That's why I'm moving out, tail to the radar, so you have the smallest part to the radar, and also if you leave the, I think, 9.9 kilometer, you're leaving the radar range of the Baltimore, and that's it. So now I can go back, because until I go back, the radar is gone. And you can see I'm located, so that tells me there should be another destroyer. And since I'm the destroyer's next target, I expect him to be, let's say, between me and the Baltimore. So that's why I'm turning back. I'm preparing myself to turn around. But I expect him to spot him pretty soon. And yeah, you will see what happens. Unfortunately, I'm running into all these other ships you can see there. So I wasn't expecting to need to shoot the enemy destroyer, but okay, whatever. I will get the second one as well. So for me, the game was done. And here you can see I used the radar to spot early on, and I found the destroyer. Now I'm turning, and I hope my team gets 1 or 2 salvos out, but unfortunately there's only one ship around, and yeah, it doesn't help me. So I'm opening fire because I was thinking my team would shoot, but they don't, and that's why the enemy is going to kill me here. But at least I get the destroyer. And you get the idea of what's happening here. I use the radar to spot them early on, to scare them away. You saw the destroyer turn left and run away. I got a hit with the torpedoes, so now definitely I have to get in spotting range, I have to open fire. And again, the precision strikes me. You see only 1 out of 4 hits, 2 out of 4. So the guns, I'm here at, what is this, 4 kilometer or something like that. So the guns, the precision is really bad. And not to compare with other destroyers, especially the IGN, for example. If you run any Japanese destroyer, they have a much better precision. So don't get yourself fooled by the fast reload. The precision is a disaster. So you need to be careful when to pick and where to pick your fights. So this is the final game, and this game will show you how you carry the team. So I will kick off going to ACAP, and because there's a destroyer, I make use of my radar to find the destroyer early on. Unfortunately, I'm not able to hit him with the torps, but I contest the cap, I keep fighting the battleship, I come back to find the destroyer. Again, I can use my radar and get the destroyer, and then I'm just going around to get all the caps. So in this game, I'm getting 4 caps, and I almost got the 5th cap. Unfortunately, my teammate destroyer 3 seconds before I got the 5th cap, he killed the final ship, and I couldn't get the 5th. That would have been very nice. But this game pretty much shows how I expect the SMALAND to be run. So being the eyes of the team, spot for the team, and be very selective in the fights you choose. And then the ship is fun, it can perform. I don't expect it to be the super outperformer, but it definitely can perform if you play it right. And if you're in the right circumstances, so if you have a lot of battleships for your torpedoes, and if you don't have too much radar, if you don't run into gunboat destroyers, then you have a good life. I forgot to tell you about the anti-air. Of course, the anti-air is very good in this ship. We have almost 100 points. I think it's 95 or so. So I had one game when I was engaged and chased by a carrier, and that was even a division. This carrier made 3 tries to take me off, and the first 2 times I used my anti-aircraft booster, and I really wiped his planes. I think I took 9 each of the flights, and the third time I took the rest of the remaining squadron, and then he gave up. So you really scare off destroyers in this one. So this is a very good thing. But on the other side, with the legendary tiers matchups, you barely get destroyers. The Ostergotland on the opposite, you get tier 7, and tier 7 has more destroyers, but legendary barely has destroyers. So anti-air might prove or might be useful in the future. At the moment, it's a side gimmick for this tier. It's not too big of a use, but on the other hand, yeah, it doesn't damage. But what I want to say is, while with the Ostergotland, I use the mod 1 to spec for anti-air from time to time. I wouldn't suggest this in this ship. You need the precision mod in the first slot. If you don't use the precision mod, you're not gonna hit anything. So use the precision mod, and in mod 4 I use the torpedo reload, and 3 is concealment, 2 is propulsion. So basically it's self-explaining due to the drawbacks of the ship. So you want to neutralize the bad dispersion and the bad maneuverability. Yeah, so this is how I run the ship. So having said that, that was my review of the SMALAND. Should you grind it? Yes, it's a nice ship, even better than some other tier 8 ships. So it's definitely fun to play. It's a different ship, a different way to play this ship. If you like the Ostergotland, you should go for it, but beware, it plays a little different than the Ostergotland. It's not as agile, and I think the Ostergotland has more precision in the guns. It's not confirmed, but I think the guns are, from my feeling, are more precise than this one here. We need to wait for Wargaming if they confirm it. But besides that, it's a nice destroyer. So having said that, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to my channel if you want to hear news about destroyers, if you want to hear about tips and tricks. So this channel is purely dedicated to destroyers, and I'm trying to target some beginners, but basically this channel aims to the medium to pro level players, because I'm always highlighting some more advanced tactics and more advanced insights. So if you're a beginner, you might check out my tutorial, my 9 series, and that might cover you until you have an intermediate understanding of destroyers. The tutorial has its own playlist. It is called How to Become a Top 1% Destroyer Captain. Look out for that. That's 9 episodes. That's about in total 5 hours or so, and I will teach you everything from scratch, from game 1, what you need to know about to become a good destroyer captain. Besides that, you have a playlist for every destroyer tier 5 and up. So if you're interested in a specific destroyer, how it's going to be played, how I spec it, just check out the playlist. You have plenty of games for each destroyer and a playlist for everybody. So enjoy the channel, enjoy the time, recommend the channel, and I hope I sync you out there. Bye bye, see you soon.
Stationen, Feuer auf das Ziel konzentrieren. Alle Stationen, brauche Feuerunterstützung. Alle Stationen, brauche Feuerunterstützung.